Russian Defense Ministry has released footage showing its nuclear deterrence training, overseen via video link by Russian President Vladimir Putin.
The drills happen as Moscow continues to press its claims that Ukraine has been developing a dirty bomb, an accusation strongly denied by Kyiv and dismissed by several world leaders. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Tropical storm Paeng maintains its strength while slowly moving westward as Pagasa hoists signal number 1 in some Luzon and Visayas areas. 18,000 families are affected by the strong Abra quake. 44 are hurt, according to National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC. Russian President Vladimir Putin alleges that weapons sent by Western countries to Ukraine end up in the black market. 13 killed in a Shiite Muslim shrine attack in southern Iran. And remains of American volunteer killed in Ukraine now in Kyiv's custody. Pagasa expects tropical storm Paeng to further intensify while moving over the warm waters of the Philippine Sea. Per the latest track and intensity forecast, the highest wind signal that will likely be hoisted is wind signal number 4 in anticipation of typhoon force conditions associated with Paeng. Its 5 p.m. bulletin also said Paeng was spotted 515 kilometers east of Borongan City, eastern Samar, with packing winds of 65 kilometers per hour and gustiness of up to 80 kilometers per hour. The following areas were also placed under wind signal number 1: the eastern portion of Camarines Sur, Catanduanes, Albay, Sorsogon, and Masbate, including Ticao Island and Burias Island, eastern Samar, northern Samar, Samar, Biliran, and the northern portion of Leyte.
The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council are closely monitoring the movement of Tropical Storm Paeng. The agency said preemptive evacuation would be implemented tonight until Friday, October 28 in Bicol region. Vin Pascua has the details.
The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council is on high alert for the onslaught of Tropical Storm Paeng. In an interview with Net25's ASPN, ano sa palagay nyo? NDRRMC spokesperson Assistant Secretary Rafi Alejandro said they are now assessing the path of the typhoon and are preparing for its onslaught.
Ito nga, kahapon pa lang nag-a-assess na kami, nagkaroon na ng pre-disaster risk assessment for Paeng. At tinitingnan natin kung saan patungo itong bagyo. Initially po, papunta siya ng Northern Luzon pa rin, dadaan ng Bicol area, Central Luzon, and then towards north, no, sa Cagayan or CAR or Region 1 area. So, yun po. So, these are the same areas na tinamaan ng previous bagyo. Yung tatlo, yung Carding, Maymay, Neneng, and then ito si Paeng, no? Si Obet. Kaya po, puspusang nag-i-issue na tayo ng mga warning para maghanda dito kay Paeng. Kasi by tomorrow po, maranasan na ng Bicol, no? Yung effects nito, umpisa po sa Bicol, then papunta na yan sa Central and then Northern Luzon.
The agency has already alerted respective local government units or LGUs in Bicol region to implement preemptive evacuation tonight until tomorrow, Friday.
Sa Bicol po, they should start preemptive evacuation by tonight or tomorrow kasi based sa current forecast po doon muna and then eventually Central and Northern.
Meanwhile, the NDRRMC official admitted that the following strong quake that hit Abra province and the threat of Typhoon Paeng is a big challenge for Northern Luzon.
Ang challenge lang natin dito is itong mga naapektuhan ng earthquake, no? Na hindi pa pwede bumalik sa bahay nila or kailangan mag-stay sa evacuation center. So, kailangan po namin bilisan i-assess itong mga structures na ito para bago man dumating yung bagyo ay may matilungan itong mga kababayan natin na hindi pa makauwi sa kanilang mga bahay po.
The disaster agency also assured that with the help of the Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD, relief goods are on standby for residents who will be evacuated due to the typhoon Paeng and the current earthquake evacuees.
We have enough non-food items, close to 79,000 items ito. Meron kaming quick response fund na pwede pang gamitin. So, i-replenish natin ito.
I am Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippine Ports Authority has announced the suspension of sea travel of small sea craft to areas on the path of Tropical Storm Paeng. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board has likewise advised the public of the possible suspension of public transport from and out of Metro Manila due to the weather condition. Madeline Villar Moratillo has the details.
Due to the onslaught of Tropical Storm Paeng, the Philippine Ports Authority or PPA has announced a temporary suspension of operations of sea crafts to areas declared under Signal Number 1. In its advisory, the PPA said port operations would be suspended in Borongan Eastern Samar, Calbayog and Catbalogan Samar, Giwan in Eastern Samar, San Isidro in Northern Samar, and Tabaco in Albay. Meanwhile, the Philippine Coast Guard has also canceled operations of small sea crafts in Romblon. PCGC Travel Advisory said the suspension covers sea travel to Northern Samar, and fishing boats including small crafts are advised to cease from going offshore. As part of the preparations for the typhoon, the PCG has alerted its deployable response groups in its districts in Bicol and Romblon to ensure immediate deployment in case residents need to be evacuated or rescued. Meanwhile, the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board or LTFRB has advised the public on the possible cancellation or suspension of public transport from Bicol going in and out of Metro Manila. Data from the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration or PAGASA showed that Paeng would bring moderate to heavy rains in Bicol region starting Friday until the weekend. LTFRB said their regional offices are closely monitoring operations of public transport in the Bicol region in relation to the possible suspension of public transport going in and out of Metro Manila to avoid any delay with the travelers or any untoward incidents. Madeline Villar Moratillo reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The 6.4 magnitude earthquake that hit Abra province on Tuesday evening damaged almost 2,000 houses. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, has reported that the tectonic earthquake has affected 61 families or 61,000 individuals or 18,000 families in regions 1, 2, and the Cordillera Administrative Region or CAR. 22 families took shelter in evacuation centers, while 140 families chose to stay with their relatives. NDRRMC data shows that 44 individuals were reportedly injured. 12 are from Region 1, while the other 32 are from the Cordillera region. 1,821 houses are reportedly damaged in northern Luzon, with 8 categorized as totally damaged. Most of the damaged houses are in the Cordilleras, particularly in Abra. Classes remain suspended in 94 schools in northern Luzon because of the damages incurred by the buildings. Local government units and personnel from the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, continue its assessment of the buildings affected by the tremor. The NDRRMC said initial estimates show that earthquake cost or damage by the earthquake cost 52.7 million pesos, and that is to infrastructure. Power supply has been restored in the areas affected by the quake, while a number of roads are still closed to motorists.
2 soldiers died while another one is missing after members of the 24th Infantry Battalion of the Philippine Army were ambushed on their way to a disaster response operation for the victims of Abra quake in Barangay Gacab, Malibcong, Abra. The ambush took place as the soldiers deployed by their battalion headquarters are on their way to aid response operations after magnitude 6.4 earthquakes rocked the province. Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Garcia III, commander of the 24th Infantry Battalion, condemned the ambush of the government troops. The official vowed to the victims' families that they would bring to justice the perpetrators in their families' demise.
The Department of Health has warned that COVID-19 infections in the country may increase to 18,000 daily cases towards the end of the year if the policy on indoor mask wearing will be made voluntary. Cesar Alvarez reports.
Health Officer in charge Maria Rosario Vergere said that the DOH made a projection that the virus infection would increase in November and December with the relaxed health protocol, with new cases of 2,500 up to 18,000 daily. In a radio interview, Vergere said they have presented the DOH concerns during the meeting of the Interagency Task Force on the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, or IATF. But the IATF is a collegial body, and Vergere reminded the task force has considered the concerns of all sectors. She said the body made a compromise for a unified message to educate the public that this is an informed choice. On Tuesday, Tourism Secretary Cristina Frasco said that the government plans to make the indoor mask wearing voluntary except in public transportation and medical facilities. The government also urged unvaccinated individuals, senior citizens, and individuals with comorbidities to continue observing indoor mask wearing. The Philippines is also set to waive other health protocols for travelers, including the requirement to present RT-PCR test results upon arrival. Sas Alvarez reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Marcos administration is confident for the big boost in the region's economy with the construction of the Davao-Samal Bridge. The project, supported by the Chinese government, is proof of a stable relationship between the two countries. Eden Santos has the story.
Let's give it a big round of applause, everybody.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. today led a groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of the new bridge that would connect Davao City and Samal Island in Mindanao. During his speech, the president said the bridge would not only provide access and accelerate education, jobs and social services between the two areas, but would also open its economy.
Once completed, this bridge will help us develop the economic potential of Davao City and the island garden of the city of Samal, as well as enhance its residents' access to employment, education, and other services. I also believe that through this project, we will further improve the peace and order situation in the area, as well as ensure the faster and more efficient aid distribution during times of calamities.
The president thanked the Chinese government for being a partner and its active participation in the country's infrastructure programs. Marcos said the Davao-Samal Bridge is a proof of the strong ties between the Philippines and China. He added that China had contributed projects like that benefited Filipinos and the country's economy.
This is a testament to the strong and ever-growing foundation of the bilateral relations and cooperation between our two countries.
For his part, Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Wang Zilian, assured the Philippines would reap the benefits of a modernized China.
The vital process of Chinese modernization will definitely have a profound impact on the world and benefit the mankind. China and the Philippines are close neighbors who enjoy complementary development advantages and broad prospects for cooperation. In China's journey towards China's modernization, we are willing to work hand in hand with the Philippines for mutual benefit and common development. And I believe this will definitely facilitate the Philippines' economic transformation and modernization process.
He added that this would not be the last time the two countries would partner in infrastructure projects, but also with other programs.
Over the 100 days of President Marcos' administration, the new administration has prioritized economic growth and livelihood improvement. It resonates with the development method of Chinese modernization. Looking ahead, great potential is to be tapped for, exploited for China-Philippine cooperation. China is ready to work with the Philippines to fulfill consensus among our leaders, strengthen our ties as close neighbors, good friends, good relatives, and friendly partners. Further our cooperation in agriculture, infrastructure, energy, and people-to-people exchanges, so as to bring more tangible benefits to our two peoples.
Meanwhile, President Marcos has extended to congratulate China in the success of its recent Communist Party conference, where Chinese President Xi Jinping secured a third term as the head of China's Communist Party.
To whom we must extend our congratulations for the successful conduct of the Communist Party conference just concluded, and we look forward to building upon the directions that President Xi Jinping has given to the People's Republic of China in partnership with the Philippines. We look forward to continuing to strengthen and to bring closer our two countries.
Moreover, the president also thanked the administration of former President Rodrigo Duterte for pursuing the Davao-Samal Connector Bridge project.
At this juncture, I would also like to explain that I am only fortunate to have been sitting as president when we broke ground for this very important project. This project actually was formally begun by then Secretary Mark Villar under the Duterte administration, and it began formally to put together the project since 2018. So the previous administration had already been working on this project for 4 years before we arrived to this day.
The president said he hopes to be the one to inaugurate the bridge when it is finished. Eden Santos reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, Russian President Vladimir Putin says weapons sent to Ukraine is appearing on black market. U.S. says Russia is advising Iran on how to handle protests. And Israeli government approves Lebanon maritime border deal. Stay tuned. These and more stories when we return.
Sisitas na po. Opo. Kita mo ng balon.
Pabot naman ng wallet. Hagis na lang. Hagis na lang po.
Oh no, it's Biro only. Sa Nest 25.
We bring you more stories here on Mata ng Agila International. Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that portable air defense systems and high-precision armaments sent to Ukraine by Western countries may fall into the wrong hands. In a meeting with the heads of security and special services of the Commonwealth of Independent States, or CIS countries, Putin said Western weapons flowing into Ukraine have begun to make their way onto black markets. Putin called on the participants of the meeting to bolster cooperation in anti-terrorism efforts and noted that there were serious challenges posed by the emerging black arms markets in Ukraine. The Russian leader claimed that cross-border criminal groups were actively involved in smuggling weapons to other regions and that it was not just small firearms. Putin's statements come after Russia's permanent representative to the United Nations, Vasily Nebenja, warned last September that corrupt Ukrainian officials had established channels to deliver Western-supplied weapons onto the global black market.
Umaro Mokhtar Sisoko Embalo, the Guinea-Bissau president, said Russian President Vladimir Putin requested him to deliver a message to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky about the importance of a direct dialogue between Moscow and Kyiv. RT News said Embalo made this revelation at a joint press conference with Zelensky in Kyiv. Embalo claimed that Putin asked him to convey to Zelensky that a direct dialogue is important to their future actions. Before his meeting with Zelensky, Embalo told the press that he found Putin to be very open to negotiating with Zelensky and that he was looking forward to conveying his goodwill to the Ukrainian leader. Yet Zelensky was adamant and said that to build bridges between countries, one should not blow up the infrastructure. RT News said that Zelensky was apparently referring to the strikes on Ukraine's power stations launched by Russia on October 10 in what Moscow described as retaliation for Kyiv's terrorist attack on the Crimean Bridge. Zelensky maintained that any conversation involves respect for one country for another one, starting from respecting its territorial integrity, sovereignty, and borders. Earlier this month, Putin named Ukraine's refusal to talk as the reason behind the absence of negotiations between the two countries. Putin's remarks came soon after Zelensky signed a decree forbidding any negotiations with him and insisting Ukraine will only talk to Russia when it has a different president.
Kyiv said Wednesday that Russia returned the remains of a U.S. citizen who was killed fighting Moscow's forces in Ukraine, along with 10 Ukrainian servicemen in a prisoner swap. Mykolaiv police purport to show 10 Ukrainian soldiers being returned home in a prisoner exchange that took place in the country's eastern Kherson region after spending time in Russian captivity. The head of the office of the president of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, said on his Telegram account that the body of an American volunteer, Joshua Allen Jones, was also handed over as part of the exchange.
Several exchange prisoners who were held in Russian-occupied eastern Ukraine told stories of horrendous conditions at the hands of their Russian captors. The prisoner swap included more than 100 women from Russian detention last week. 4 of the women who spoke to journalists said that aside from overcrowding, which was comparable to herrings in a jar, there were also hunger, physical abuse, and humiliation. The women were released last week as part of a long-negotiated prisoner exchange with Moscow. Authorities in Kyiv estimated a few thousand Ukrainians are still being held by Russia as prisoners of war.
Russia has conducted 5 days of nuclear training drills. President Vladimir Putin oversaw the training of Moscow's strategic deterrence forces. The drills included launching test missiles in Russia's Far East and Arctic regions. Tu-95 long-range aircraft were also deployed. Russian strategic forces are meant to respond to nuclear threats. The drills come as Russia continues to press its claims that Ukraine has been developing a dirty bomb. That accusation has been denied by Kyiv. Russia has repeatedly threatened to use nuclear weapons.
The United States believes Russia may be giving Iran some advice on how to handle dissidents in that country. Iran has endured nearly 6 weeks of often violent protests sparked by the death of a woman arrested by morality police. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says there is concern that the Iranians are getting tips on how to contain the dissent.
We're concerned that Moscow may be advising Tehran on best practices to manage protests, drawing on Russia's extensive experience in suppressing open demonstrations.
At least 13 people have been killed in an attack on a Shiite Muslim shrine in southern Iran. Iran's state broadcaster says 40 others were wounded when armed terrorists attacked the Shah Cheragh mausoleum in Shiraz. The dead included at least one woman and 2 children. In a statement, Iran's presidency promised a severe response to the attack. It went on to condemn those who attempt to divide the united ranks of the nation through violence and terror. One person has been arrested. The state broadcaster says he is connected to radical Sunni Islamist groups.
Israel and Lebanon separately signed a U.S.-brokered maritime border deal, which paves the way for lucrative offshore gas extraction by the neighbors that remain technically at war. Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid said the historic agreement fortifies Israel's security as well as freedom of action against Hezbollah and the threats from the north. Lebanon President Michel Aoun strongly denied that the deal had political implications. He said demarcating the southern maritime border is technical work that has no effects contradicting their country's foreign policy. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden hailed the signing as a historic breakthrough. The momentous agreement is set to go into effect after 2 exchanges of letters, one between Lebanon and the United States, the other between Israel and the U.S. With this inked deal, political observers said Western powers are now on their way to opening up new gas production, as well as reducing vulnerability to supply cuts from Russia. When Mata ng Agila International returns, French President Emmanuel Macron vows to protect most vulnerable in face of looming economic storm. UK's crunch budget plan postponed until November 17. And German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says solidarity is the only solution to EU energy crisis. All these and more stories from around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Sa linggo, isang nakakatuwang kwentuhan kasama ang pinakabagong MTRCB chairwoman, Miss Lala Soto.
Meron ako one and only movie. Ano say mo?
You think you wanna give showbiz a try again in the future?
Never.
Kahit sitcom, ayaw mo.
Pinuldo ka, never. So, nandun talaga yung heart ko, nasa public service.
Kita-kits sa linggo, 4 to 5 p.m. Dito lang sa Moments on Net 25. Moments.
The wellness industry has seen a boom in the past years. Many of us turned to natural ways of healing our bodies and in the process adopted a healthy lifestyle. One business who took the natural path shares with us her journey in the wellness industry through her own products. Miss Betty Dante Ao, a certified naturopath practitioner and the CEO of Business Innovations Gateway Incorporated, maker and distributor of Gusto powdered vegetable drink.
Naturopathy is actually by the word nature. So we go back to nature to find the answers on how to be healthy.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
President Emmanuel Macron vows to protect the most vulnerable in the face of a looming economic storm. Macron strongly defends his budget and aims to tighten immigration and asylum policies. And despite the weekly industrial strikes that Paris is facing, the president is keen on finding a way to reform the country's pension system. In a televised interview, Macron insists that even in the face of all the opposition, which was sometimes demagogic, his government was right to pass the budget. He voices out that France already has a public deficit that will be 5% of GDP next year. He says that the strategy for this financial shortfall is the stabilization of public spending, start under a 5-year term to pay off debt, hold growth, and creation of more jobs. The president says this is the rationale for reforming the labor market and pensions. He also cites that lowering of taxes can cushion energy prices for businesses and local communities. According to a recent economic forecast, the French economy is heading for a sluggish end to 2022. INSEE estimates that growth will be modest in the third quarter, with GDP growing only by 0.2% compared to 0.5% for the second quarter.
Au fond, nous devons passer cette tempête. C'est la première chose que je leur dis. Et nous allons la passer ensemble. On en a passé d'autres, comme la crise Covid. Et donc, pour traverser cette tempête, on doit protéger les plus faibles. Nos étudiants, nos familles les plus modestes, nos entreprises les plus fragiles, aussi notre industrie. On doit pousser ceux qui ont plus de force à encore faire mieux. Et puis,
devastating floods ravaged the Makurdi area in central Nigeria, damaging hundreds of houses and streets. Though floods are common in Nigeria during the rainy season from May to November, they have been dangerous and extreme this year. According to authorities, more than 600 people have been killed since June in the deadliest floods the country has faced in a decade. Officials and residents blamed climate change, but there was also poor planning for the release of excessive water from dams. A farmer said that if the government does not open the water through the spillways, dams will break and Nigeria would be underwater, suffering the same fate as Pakistan. The floods also prevented the transport of trucks and damaged roads and bridges, further pressuring the food supply. In the meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari ramped up support to affected communities as the country will face or is expected to face more floods until the end of November.
The new administration of Britain's Rishi Sunak has postponed its fiscal plan until mid-November to ensure that their forecast would be as accurate as possible. This according to the Office of the Prime Minister. From London, Arian Celestino reports.
The UK's eagerly awaited budget plan has been postponed until November 17, the Office of new Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said on Wednesday. The Chancellor updated the Cabinet on the timing of the fiscal event. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor agreed that the fiscal event would now take place on the 17th of November, a readout of Sunak's first Cabinet meeting said. Chancellor Jeremy Hunt said the short delay was justified in the circumstances. He told broadcasters that he's willing to take decisions very quickly, as well as making choices that are politically embarrassing if they're the right thing to do for the country. Additionally, he also said that now we have a new Prime Minister and the prospect of much longer-term stability for the economy in the country, and in that context, and that a short 2.5-week delay is the best way they will make sure that it is the right decisions they take. The government's much-anticipated medium-term fiscal plans had been due on October 31st. Han said the OBR Office for Budget Responsibility fiscal watchdog also wanted to make sure that their forecasts are the most accurate possible, and there have been a lot of changes even in the last 48 hours. The announcement came as Sunak got down to business Wednesday after weeks of political turmoil. Ex-Prime Minister Liz Truss, who left office on Tuesday, caused financial markets to implode with an ill-conceived plan for tax cuts financed by extra borrowing. Reporting from the United Kingdom, this is Arian Celestino for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Britain's ultra-wealthy and recently appointed British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his family plan to live in the flat above number 10 Downing Street, despite owning luxury properties, including one in London. A penthouse in California, an apartment in London's exclusive Kensington district, and a mansion in his Yorkshire constituency in the north of England are just some of the reportedly inclusions in Sunak's record of properties. Still, it was confirmed by Prime Minister Secretary Suella Braverman that Sunak's family will be moving into the number 10 flat, Downing Street. Meanwhile, Braverman is not sure if the family has plans to redecorate. The number 10 flat in Downing Street is in a prime location, but it is relatively small. Sunak's expected move to the flat will signify a return to the London home of the British Prime Minister.
The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency says public opinion is changing on nuclear energy. Rafael Grossi says younger people do not accept the prevailing opinion that nuclear power is bad.
We can see even in countries that used to have public opinion that was clearly reluctant on nuclear. Now things are changing, and they're changing fast. People want. There's a new generation that is not going to stop at the first narrative that nuclear is bad. They want to know why is this so, and why we are not taking advantage of options that provide, clean energy. It's as simple as that. Especially the young. It's amazing.
Grossi says there is grave misinformation about the safety of nuclear reactors and the dangers of nuclear waste.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said the thorny dispute over EU energy prices can only be resolved on the basis of solidarity. Berlin resisted putting a price cap on gas, with Scholz saying the objective should be to lower prices. Germany's move to spend up to 200 billion euros subsidizing soaring gas prices and refusal to consider an EU-wide energy price cap has nettled Paris and other European capitals who fear the effect on their energy costs. The dispute over fuel prices has hobbled efforts by EU energy ministers this week to regulate the cost of energy generation in the bloc. The diverse range of energy sources in the 27 countries, which included coal, gas, wind, hydro, and nuclear, makes a one-size-fits-all policy difficult. The current issue is a crucial one as the European Union grapples with sky-high inflation fed by soaring energy prices, severely aggravated by Russia's conflict with Ukraine.
A wildfire on Africa's tallest mountain continues to burn, consuming the lush forest on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro. The blaze began Friday near the Karanga site used by climbers as a base camp. Hard winds have been fanning the flames. So far, there have been no reports of injuries. At one point, the team of some 400 people trying to extinguish the blaze thought they had it under control, but the fire erupted again in several places. There has been no comment from Tanzanian authorities about the extent of the damage. The fire is not posing a threat to tourists on the mountain, which is a major draw for hikers and climbers. The forests around the mountain are listed as a World Heritage Site because of the many endangered species that live there.
This week is International Lead Poisoning Prevention Week. The World Health Organization enjoins countries and individuals to do their part in preventing deaths and sickness from lead exposure. Rosel Faria has the report.
The World Health Organization says close to 1 million people die from lead poisoning every year. Add to that, millions more, most of them children, get exposed to low levels of lead that causes lifelong health problems. These health problems include anemia, hypertension, immunotoxicity, and toxicity to the reproductive organs. The neurological and behavioral effects of lead could be irreversible. WHO recommends that the source of lead exposure should be identified and action taken to reduce and terminate exposure for all individuals with a blood lead level of more than 5 microgram per deciliter. The health agency warns there is no safe level of exposure to lead, which harms particularly children's health. WHO Department of Environment, Climate Change and Health Director Dr. Maria Nera says lead exposure is especially dangerous to children's developing brains and can result in reduced intelligence quotient or IQ, attention span, impaired learning ability, and increased risk of behavioral problems. WHO identifies lead as one of 10 chemicals of major public health concern needing action by member states to protect the health of workers, children, and women of reproductive age. It calls upon all countries to ban lead paint, identify and eliminate all sources of childhood lead exposure, and educate the public regarding the dangers of misusing lead-containing products. Say No to Lead Poisoning is the theme of the 10th International Lead Poisoning Prevention Week that is from October 23 through the 29th of this year. Rosel Faria, Washington, D.C., Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In Honduras, people are fleeing their homes because of death threats from gang members. People living in a poor neighborhood of the Honduran capital of Tegucigalpa take what they can with them as they abandon their homes. Residents walk away carrying personal belongings, and pets as members of the Barrio 18 gang are forcing them out. Gang members who want to occupy their homes give residents a choice to leave or die. About 200 officers from the National Police and military forces have been deployed to the community. They say they are trying to keep it safe so those who want to return may do so. But for some, the fear of violence is too much.
The head of the World Meteorological Association is concerned about a record increase in the amount of methane in the Earth's atmosphere. Peteri Taala says methane concentrations in 2021 were at an all-time high.
We know that this increase is very much coming from tropical areas where we have both wetlands and then we have also human activities there coming from waste and also from rice paddies and cattle.
Methane has a much more powerful warming impact on the atmosphere than carbon dioxide.
Environmental activists hold a protest at the Palais Brongniart in central Paris, where Climate Finance Day, an annual meeting of the French private financial sector dedicated to global warming. Earth campaigners have gathered to remind the banks of their climate responsibilities, in particular BNP Paribas. A day before the protest, the environmental activists formally reported BNP Paribas for not respecting the law on duty of care, because BNP Paribas is the world's leading financer of 8 oil and gas giants and the biggest European financer of fossil fuel development. The scientific community stressed that if the banks want to mitigate climate catastrophe, they must stop developing fossil fuels as of now. An Earth campaigner expressed her disappointment as the banks talk about their commitments to climate change, yet there is no real ambitious policy being implemented to limit the worsening of climate change.
Later in the news, Credit Suisse launches radical overhaul to stabilize bank. Verstappen aims to beat teammate Perez, claims record win in Mexico. And Selena Gomez tests positive for COVID-19. Stay tuned for more stories here on Mata ng Agila International.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
This portion is brought to you by Source Alliance.
After huge third-quarter losses, Credit Suisse aimed to revive the bank through a series of radical measures and revamping of its investment banking unit, which may result in 9,000 job cutoffs. Switzerland's second biggest bank will have a radical restructuring of its investment bank designed to create a new Credit Suisse, achieving a simpler, more focused and more stable bank. The bank aims to increase its capital worth to 4 billion Swiss francs through the issuance of new shares to qualified investors, including Saudi National Bank. According to Chairman Axel Lehmann, for more than 166 years, Credit Suisse has built a powerful and respected franchise, but in recent years, it noticeably became out of focus. Lehmann confidently confirmed that planned improvements in the risk management and control processes across the bank will serve as the blueprint of the institution toward success.
Shell has reported its second highest quarterly profits on record, with takings between July and September more than doubling. The energy giant said underlying profits reached 9.5 billion pesos in the third quarter compared to 4.2 billion during the same period last year. The profits prompted calls for the windfall tax on the profits of energy firms to be raised to help people with bills. A windfall tax is a one-off tax imposed to target firms that are lucky enough to benefit from something they were not responsible for. Yet, for most oil and gas companies in the UK, the tax imposed is a small part of their operations. Ed Miliband, Labour's shadow climate change secretary, said Shell's profits were further proof the UK needed a higher windfall tax to make sure energy companies pay their fair share.
Samsung has named convicted heir and de facto boss Lee Jae-yong as its executive chairman. Lee was convicted of bribery and embezzlement in 2017, but was granted special presidential pardon in August by President Yoon Suk-yeol. The South Korean electronics giant said in a statement that the board cited the current uncertain global business environment and pressing need for stronger accountability and business stability in approving the recommendation. The announcement officially validates the role of Lee in Samsung Electronics. The symbolic move means the South Korea's biggest smartphone maker will now be officially run by the third generation of its founding family.
Max Verstappen is set to seek a remarkable record this weekend as he aims to beat Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez in front of his passionate home fans at the Mexican Grand Prix. The 25-year-old world champion who recently bagged a world title for the Red Bull is bidding for an unprecedented 14th win of the season. The popular Mexican has already won twice for Red Bull this season, and with his third attempt to win another title, he admitted it will not be an easy thing to attain. Meanwhile, Verstappen's Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez said it's normal for them to look for victory. Perez clarified that under a team with Verstappen, they intend to get the first and second titles to different races.
Boxer Tyson Fury is set to release his debut single to raise money for men's mental health charity Talk Club. Our UK correspondent Ryan Florentino has the details.
The two-time world heavyweight champion has covered Neil Diamond's classic Sweet Caroline. The song is set for release on 11th of November ahead of the FIFA World Cup in Qatar. It was chosen for its status as a fan favorite at many UK sporting events, with Fury saying he feels a particular connection to the track. Fury, who will fight Derek Chisora in their trilogy bout in December, said he was proud to be partnering with the team at Talk Club, and he said who do such amazing work. Fury's honesty with mental health problems continue to inspire. Tyson's Fury's message on mental health at awards. Fury says it is his calling to help people with mental health problems. Fury has previously spoken openly about his struggles with mental health, and 100% of the profits from the single, including Fury's earnings, will be donated to Talk Club. Co-founders Ben Akers and Gavin Thorpe said suicide is the biggest killer of men under 50 in the UK. Tyson Fury is a champion in and out of the ring to many of those men. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Ryan Florentino for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Kanye West was escorted by two executives out of the Skechers corporate offices after the rapper showed up uninvited. West, also known as Ye, triggered headlines in recent weeks after tweeting racist and anti-Semitic statements that led him to lose several lucrative fashion collaborations. West's arrival at Skechers' Los Angeles offices was unannounced, and Skechers clarified that they did not invite the rapper to visit. Moreover, the company confirmed it has no intention of working with West, adding that they do not tolerate any form of hate speech. Recently, Balenciaga, Adidas, Gap, and one of Hollywood's biggest talent agencies, CAA, already ended ties with West. West also made headlines when he was dropped off the Forbes billionaires list. His Adidas lucrative contract alone was valued at $1.5 billion. But now Forbes estimates West's current net worth is around $400 million.
Selena Gomez said she is canceling her guest appearance at a late-night show after testing positive for COVID-19. The Love You Like a Love Song singer shared the sad news on Instagram. Gomez said she is not going to be on Jim Fallon's show, but instead she will take this time to rest. The actress and musician assured her fans that she is feeling okay. She also reminded everyone to get updated booster shots since the COVID-19 virus is still out there.
State media said an Iranian man, given the nickname Dirtiest Man in the World, who did not take a bath for decades, has died at the age of 94. According to IRNA news agency, a Muhaji who did not wash for exceedingly half a century died on Sunday in the village of Dejga in the southern province of Fars. Haji had avoided showering through the years due to his fear of being sick. But for the first time a few months ago, villagers had taken him to a bathroom to wash. After some days, he got sick and he died. According to Iranian media outlets, a short documentary film titled The Strange Life of a Muhaji was made to share how he lived his life way back in 2013.
He did, didn't he? Let's now take a look back at some historical events that happened on this day, October 27. In 1954, the first television show of Walt Disney, the Disneyland, premiered on ABC TV network. In 1992, Great Britain issued a stamp to commemorate the 100th anniversary of J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And in 2002, the Government Service Insurance System, or GSIS, purchased Juan Luna's Parisian Life painting for 46 million pesos at an auction in Hong Kong.
And it's almost the weekend, but not quite yet. To help you go through the rest of the week, here is a quote from Oscar Wilde, an Irish poet and playwright. What seems to us as bitter trials are often blessings in disguise. And this all comes down to perspective. You choose how you see things, right? And if you look at things in a positive light, then it'll yield, positive results for you. Because if you are coming from a negative place inside you, it's hard to see the blessings around you. That is so it has to start here and here. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hero.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.